Hey, welcome back to Black Lab Garage. Today I'm out here in the middle of, well, a cow pasture in BFE. Why, you're wondering? Well, let me show you. See, I'm not kidding, literally a cow pasture. This is literally a field fine Ford 641 tractor. It's set for, I don't even know how many years, at least 10. And we're going to see if we can get it running. You ready? Come on, let's get into it. Just at a quick glance, the starter's off of it, which we did find the starter for it. Carburetor's off of it. We didn't find the carburetor for it. Pipe's a little forward. It's got that rare jousting option. Well, let's piddle around with this thing a little bit, see if we get it to do anything at all. Now we got one huge rat's nest. I'm betting the gas tank is horrible. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like a fine wine. It's aged horribly. I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but let me get you a little light. It's bad. Take this old 6-volt battery out. Well, the battery tray's a little ventilated. Nothing that piece of plywood won't fix. Nah, y'all know me better than that. You know I can't just use a piece of plywood. I have to put a piece of metal in it anyway. So what is it I always tell you? If you don't have time to do it right, when you're going to have time to do it over? Now let's take a look at the distributor. I'm sure the points are green in it by now. I can't even get the distributor cap off of it. Yeah, they're green. But that's okay. Now listen, I've told you this before, and I'll say it again. Don't use sandpaper. Use a points file. The reason being sandpaper, the grit embeds itself in the faces of the points. After you filed them, pry them open and take a dollar bill and run between them to clean them. Or brown paper bag works good too. Or a business card. There. Got some of that stuff off of it. Alright. Been farmerized. Silicone on the plug wire boot. Now this is interesting. got anti-foulers on it. So it probably uses a little oil. I'm going to have to take that off there to see if I can see any spark. Like here, I took the air filter off to check, or to get the battery out of it, to get to the hold down on the other side, and look, it's full of a rat's nest. But anyway, let's stick a starter on here and see if it works. One thing you always want to do, use a wrench to hold the back side, because a lot of people won't, and you end up breaking. That stud goes all the way through to the inside, and there's a soldered connection in there. And if you don't hold it, the whole stud tries to twist and it breaks that soldered connection, and then they won't crank very good, if at all. So always make sure you hold the stud to keep it from turning. Now we're going to see if we got any spark. But of course, this was originally a 6-volt system, and we've got a 12-volt battery on it. So you got to run a ballast resistor. Standard part number is RU10, RU10. Because if you don't, you will very shortly see smoke coming out of the coil. Run it on full 12 volts. One side, I'm just making a jumper wire straight to the battery, and the other side will go to the battery side of the coil. That's all there is for now. Alright, got one side run down to the hot side of the coil, and I've got a clamp on this side, just clamp onto the battery post. So let's see if we get any spark. Which it may be hard for you all to see, but I put a long spark plug wire, and I run the spark plug through over to this side, because I'm going to have to jump it over here. That's a solenoid to crank it over. So let's hook the coil up. Okay. Now then. Nothing. Alright, I went over and cleaned the points again, so let's see what happens. We got spark. Alright. Now let's get some gas into it, see if it'll at least light off. Alright, don't laugh, but I took an 8-horse Briggs & Stratton gas tank, ran a rubber hose off of it. I took this carburetor off of a Ferguson of mine. Now, of course, their throttle is on the opposite side of a Ford, and of course it won't hook up, but it'll at least let us run it and idle, just to see if it'll run. It's a Marvel Chevrolet. So you can interchange a Ford and Ferguson carburetor. You just have to swap the linkage around, remove the butterfly, and take this throttle rod out and replace it with a Ford and come through from the other side. I have done that before. So let's throw this on there, put some gas in it. Really? Now the starter quit. It's a trying. Oops, I might have flooded it. let that starter cool down for a minute. Well, unfortunately, as you can tell, the starters took a dump on us. And yeah, the brushes are shot in it. So let's put some brushes in it. And take that band off, and then take these two 7/16 bolts out. This back plate will come right off. Well, it'll pull back anyway, because it can't come off till the brushes are separated. This front part should come off. Just like that. Yeah, it needs cleaned up inside bad too. But see all those places right there? That's how you know if the brushes ain't making good contact. That's where it's arcing and jumping. Ideally, if you've got a vise. If you got a lathe, you chuck this up in a lathe and turn that back down. But we don't have a lathe. So we're going to do the best we can with what we got, as usual. So, let me get this thing cleaned up. Yeah, look at that brush right there. It is shot. So you can see I've not been making good contact. I hope you can see this. Right here, there's two other brushes. I done got one of them loose. But they're right here. And it's a piece of metal that folds over and it gets soldered. Hopefully you can see the one I pulled out. So what you got to do is heat that solder up and try to work a screwdriver in there and fold the metal open. Now if you're going to solder, get a real soldering gun like this one. This actually came out of an old TV production plant, like had been in business since the 1950s. That's how old this soldering gun is. Back when I actually had to solder the TVs by hand. So this may take a little bit. Alright, I got one brush in and got it clamped back over. I just got to solder the connection back, then do the other side. But I'll probably have to lay it down to get the solder to flow down in there, so there's not a good way to capture that, but you can see what I'm doing though. Or, I mean, you understand what I'm doing. Alright, got those brushes soldered in. Resoldered the starter lug connection, or starter cable lug connection I should say. Now, put these in, these other two brushes, which they just screw in. I don't know a good way to show this process, but I mean this part's pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure there's a notch right here. Just make sure that notch goes into the starter housing right there. Now the complicated part that I don't really know how to show you. Best way I can describe it, there's a couple ways to do it. Some people will take these springs and pull them up a little bit higher. I didn't mean to take it off. Let's see. Some people can get them to kind of rest up there. I never could get it to work like that. What I do is I always just go around one at a time, and I reach in with a pair of these things here, forceps, whatever they're called. These doctor things, and I lock them on there and pull it back, and then put the brush in that way with it pulled back. That's how I do it. If you can get them to rest up there, by all means go ahead and do it. I need to get a little oil and put in there before I put it back together though. Okay, here on the last one, hopefully I'll get it to where you can see it. But hook them right there on the end of it. And just pull straight back on it. And work your brush down in there. And let it go. That's how I do it. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but by God it works. And that's the important part. Now let's stick these two bolts back in it. Alright, let's see what happens here. Sounds good to me. I think we done good. Well, while cranking that thing over, I see it's leaking oil from between the block and the oil filter canister. So chances are that O-ring's blowed out or dried out. Could have two on it, I don't know, because I can see where it's been leaking previously. So we're going to take that off our, change the filter and stuff in it. And looking at it, see that bolt that holds the oil filter canister on? Yeah, somebody's used the Appalachian fit-all wrench on it, looks like, so I guess I'll have to use one on it myself. And in the meantime, I'll keep a lookout for a new bolt to put in it. And that's not just a regular bolt. That bolt also has a pressure relief valve in it. There's the rubber seal goes inside the canister. Look here. You can't even hardly bend it. I mean, it's harder than a Methodist minister's pecker. So that's no good. Let me get this thing cleaned up. Alright, spray that off. Now remember I said that the oil filter bolt has a relief valve in it? See it right there? So you want to spray it, make sure it's clean. Alright. So we got the bolt with the red washer on it. That goes into the canister. Man, these things are a pain. Now, thick rubber washer goes on the inside. And then this right here goes on with the washer up. Drop the filter on. Well, they don't really drop on either. There's that. Now we can't forget our gasket. Alright, got the gasket glued on there with grease. That's so much better. This would be better if I could use an actual wrench on it. Now let's get, and I thought they did, yep. They've got a screen on the drain plug. Been a long time since I've seen one of these, but I was thinking they did. Now let's put some oil in it. What are we using? Walmart SuperTech 2050. Why? Is there a particular reason? Yes. That's what I had on hand. That's the reason. Be sure and spill it down the side, because you couldn't find a funnel. Alright, now the starter works. Let's see, let's hook the ignition up. I know there's some gas in the carb because I pulled the plug out down here just to make sure it's flowing through, and it is. It's warm out here, so shouldn't need any choke. Range ready? How you like that? No oil leak anymore. Let's see what happens here. It feels like a gear. Clutch works. Woohoo! Alright, got the tank back up there now, so the gas will flow to it again. That cycle is lifted up and down a few times. There ain't no weight on it. See if it'll pick me up. I can stand on it. Oh yeah, no problem. Of course, I'll test it a little more than that. I'll put a plow on it and see if it'll pick it up. Hey, I just noticed there's a toolbox on this thing. I never noticed that. Well, if there's any tools in it, they're gone now. Well, now that we know that we have a runner, let's actually do a little maintenance to it. First thing we're going to do is take these old Champion plugs out and replace them with model lights. That anti-fouler stayed in there, so let's get it out. Because from what I've read, everybody had the same complaint on Champions. Is that they fouled out too easy. And that may be why he had these anti-foulers on there. Because he was running Champions. Because everybody says the auto lights run hotter. So, we're going to find out. These are auto light 437s. Got the plugs changed. So now, let's put a set of points in it. Get rid of the old green ones. And get this broken dust cover off. Alright, let's see. Turn this so we're right on the lobe. We're close now, but let's see. Alright, right there, we're in the center of the lobe. So, I can swing this distributor cap up out of the way. I'm reusing that condenser because sometimes it's hard to get a good condenser that's new. If there's nothing wrong with your old one, reuse it. Set this screw up here where it'll fall off and be gone forever. Now I'm just going to compare the points. This is my new set here. Got it from Rock Auto for $1.97 a set. They are Borg Warners. You can see there's actual copper on the arm versus this is just a regular cheap set like you get at TSC or something. Now, you'll find a little peel in there. This is one time in life you get to be a peel popper and it's legal. Since the distributor turns this way, squeeze this out and apply it to the back side of the arm. Put a little bit on here too. People used to do this all the time and nobody hardly ever does it anymore, but it'll keep your points from wearing down so fast. Now I got our filler gauge, 25 thousandths. Just about right on the money right there. But that's something else I like about these. You see the screw and nut is brass, not steel. Alright, here's our new dust cover. A line with oiler, and it's got an arrow. There's the oiler, so. Wait a minute, I just about screwed up right then. I'm glad I caught that. Now, it sounds even better now than it did yesterday. It's a lot smoother. Not smoking. So while we got it running, you know, I stood on the hydraulics, but I'm actually going to hook a plow up to it and let's see if it'll pick a plow up. If it does, then we know the hydraulics are good. about that thing? Y'all didn't tell me I'd want to come back on. Alright. I'd say that's good. Because you don't see the plow bobbing up and down like the hydraulics are leaking down and trying to pump back up, leaking down, pump back up. It's holding it. I'm impressed. Well, now we know the hydraulics are good. Let's try to get this hood off. Remove the gas tank so we can clean it out. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Real fun. I'll probably end up cutting these bolts more than likely. We'll let some heat work its magic right fast. Because I don't think those bolts are going to come loose without it. Heat works every time. Now let's heat the other side. Alright, after you get the bolts out in the front, you'll have a bolt right here on each side in the hood. Take those out, and then there'll be 4 bolts, 2 on each side here. Take those out, and then there'll be some underneath here on each side. Mine are already gone, but if yours hasn't been taken off before or something happened, they should be some underneath there. You get those off, you can lift the hood off. Should be able to anyway. We got a new carburetor in today, and sediment bowl. Alright, linkage is hooked up. This is kind of hard to do one-handed, but I'm going to trace around. This is actually a carburetor gasket for a Briggs & Stratton 5-horse horizontal motor. You'll see why right here in a second. We need this to clean the gas tank. So I'm going to trace it out on this plastic and then cut it out. Now, what did I need the plastic for? This is the bottom of the gas tank, and this is where the fuel tap goes. So we're going to lay an O-ring on there. And lay this piece of plastic on there and put the bolts back in. Because I want to try to clean this gas tank, but I got to be able to keep the water and lye in it. So let's see what happens here. Alright, hopefully that'll keep the water and lye in. It should. So let's add the water to it. Now, don't laugh too much. A friend of mine whose father used to run a radiator shop course they also clean gas tanks. He told me that it works better using lye to clean tanks if the water's warm. So you can see it. I've got a hot plate underneath the tank. So now let's put some water in it. Alright, we got the water in it, so now we add the lye. And keep your face away just in case. It's kind of hard to see down in there. I'm trying to shine some light in, but you can see how well the lye's working. I've only rinsed it once. I need to rinse it a couple more times, but the lye, I mean, it really eats the stuff away. A couple more rinses, it should be good to put on the tractor. Just to give you an idea of how bad rusty and gummed up the tank was, there's the sending unit out of it, because I pulled it out. Let me shine a light down in here, hopefully you can see it. That's how clean it is now. I mean, yeah, there's still some stains in there. You'll never get the stains out, but it's actually pretty clean now. Lye does a good job. Now what we need to do is get rid of all this wiring. We're not using none of this wiring. We're not using the gauges. So let's get it all out of here. Well, as you can see, we got a new tack to go in it, and I want to give a shout out right fast. If you ever need parts for an old Ford tractor, or I know he does internationals and stuff too, and some other brands, go on eBay and look up Hamilton Bob's Cubs. I've not been able to beat their prices. Their shipping is amazingly fast, and every part I've ever got has been great, you know, top-notch stuff. I'm not endorsed, I'm not getting paid anything to do this, but I believe, you know, if you get good service from somebody, let others know so they can also get the same great service. So I just wanted to pass that along. Now for the other gauges, because I'm trying to make this, you know, keep this as economical as possible. I'm just going to take one of these triple gauge sets and mount the gauges in it in the tractor. Just take them out of this and mount them on there. Now, one thing I am doing, I'm doing away with the fuel gauge. The reason why, it would cost you $200 to add the fuel gauge back in. I don't need a fuel gauge on a tractor. Okay, so instead I'm going to put an amp gauge on it. Got the gauges in, including the new tack or proof meters, Ford called it. And I went ahead and put a new light switch in it. And that also came from Hamilton Bob's Cubs. And I put a new ignition switch in it, which came from Rock Auto. It is just a regular on-off switch, like what they had originally, but the ones they make for them now, the replacements, are really cheap made, and I like this better, and it was actually less money. It was a Wells 1S6130. in case if you need one. There's your part number. And didn't have to drill or anything. It fit right in the stock hole. Now you see the starter solenoid is now missing. Well, the reason being I was using a regular 12 volt solenoid like I used from around 1960. I'm not exactly sure. The difference is this solenoid is like the older model Ford vehicles. Basically, if your Ford vehicle had a button to push, they use a different solenoid than ones that use a key to start. The difference is this style solenoid, of course you got your starter button here, it grounds the solenoid to crank it. Whereas the ones that you crank with a key sends 12 volts from the key to activate the solenoid. They are grounded. The 12 volt later ones ground through the body, whereas the older ones have isolated ground. They do not ground through the body. And this one has to have the isolated ground to be able to use the starter switch. Whoever had this tractor before me had put a push button on the dash. I don't like that. I went back to the original because I'd feel bad. Because when you override this, it'll let you crank the tractor in gear. There's been a lot of people run over cranking tractors in gear down through the years, and I'd feel bad if that happened to somebody, so I'm putting it back like it's supposed to be. And you got to have an isolated ground solenoid to do that. Now the solenoid, I bought one of the nice metal ones, and sadly enough, I get it in, open the box, and what was in the picture is not what was in the box. It is, I mean, this solenoid will work, but I paid for one of the metal ones, and this is what came in the box. But we're going to use it. Bad news. That new solenoid I just put on there, it ain't no good. As soon as you start cranking it, the plunger hangs up in and just keeps cranking and keeps cranking. You gotta yank the battery cable off or haul off and hit it with something to get it unstuck. So we gotta find another solenoid. Yay. That'll be easy to do on a Saturday. Well, I went to town and nobody had this solenoid. The only thing I could get was the original style solenoid. So disregard everything I said about the solenoids and stuff, because now I want to go back with the other style. Isn't this fun? I'm getting good at changing solenoids. I wonder if, you know, like, I could get a job in NASCAR for changing solenoids when they go bad during a race or something. I should check into that. Anyway, let's hook this solenoid up and see what happens. Alright, let's test it here. Okay, we're hot on that side. Nothing on that side. Key on. Hot. Hot. So, should be hot at the distributor. We are. Key off. Okay. So, the switch is working. And it works, and it ain't sticking and keep cranking either. So looks like we got a good solenoid. Alright, I put a little gas in, just enough to wet its whistle in case it had any leaks. No sparks, that's good. Well, I guess let's see what happens. The screwdriver. Turn the key on. Pull the choke out. I want to bend the alternator bracket so the belt is rubbing up against the fan on the alternator. That's what that noise is. Let's see if the kill switch works. It does. Cool. Got good oil pressure. Definitely charging. There we go. I changed the original fan and pulley back out on the alternator, come off of it. That fixed it. Still charging good. Still got good oil pressure. Tack works. Okay, since that solenoid, the 4-post 12-volt solenoid was bad, and the only thing I could find was the original style, I want to show you how to wire it. And also, that alternator, I bought a 3-wire alternator. The one they sent me is actually a 1-wire alternator, but it works. So the 2 days that or 2 evenings that I spent showing you how to rewire a 3-wire alternator on here, well, that was all pointless. So this is how it works. Of course, you got your 1 wire coming from the S terminal on your solenoid. It runs to your starter switch here. That's what grounds it out to crank it. Okay, of course, you got this side runs down to your starter. This side runs straight to your battery. You got a wire coming off the battery side that runs up to one side of your amp gauge. The other side of the amp gauge comes down and hooks to one side of your 2-post junction block. This wire comes off the same side of the 2-post junction block and runs to one side of the switch. I've got this one on the left side. And this wire here comes off this side of the junction block and runs over to the light switch. Of course, we got the other wire running to the headlights. The other side of the junction block, well, wait a minute, sorry. On this same side of the junction block here, this wire here, it's 10 gauge and runs straight to the battery terminal on the alternator. Now, the other side of the junction block, one runs to the hot side of the coil, and the other one runs to the other side of the key switch. And that's what kills the power to the coil to turn the tractor off. That's all there is to wiring one of these. And amp meter and everything works. Alright, got the oil bath cleaner back on it. I filled the oil up to the line right there. You can see this cup in here kind of floats in it. So let's get the air cleaner put back on it. Or the cup put back on the air cleaner, I should say. And use like straight 30 weight oil or something. And don't use something real light, because then it just sucks it up through the mesh and into the carburetor. You need something a little heavier so it doesn't just suck it all into the carburetor. Got the air cleaner back on. Got the hose assembly hooked up. I did change the gas cap out too, because the original gas cap, the gasket was going out from underneath it. This is one off of a Ford truck, like a 73, 74 Ford truck that is vented. Because trust me, you don't want to put an unvented cap on it or you end up vapor locking. So let's see what happens here, because we need to go pressure wash it. I found some of this oven cleaner at the Dollar Tree in a squirt bottle like this. So we're going to hose this thing down. How many of you all use oven cleaner to clean old grease and stuff off? You know, I don't have a sponsorship from Super Clean, so I just have to use oven cleaner for now. Alright, got the hood back on it. Notice I stuck a headlights in it and I've rewired it. But one thing you want to do, don't forget we've changed over to 12 volts, so got to use a 12 volt bulb. And these are Wagner 4419s. Of course, got them from Rock Auto. Let's see if they work. I run new wires, and originally these things are ground to the headlight bucket, but these things are so old and rusty now, they're not going to ground good, so I ran a new ground wire all the way back to the main ground for the battery. It's always better to do it that way. Let's see if they work. So That should work even with the key out. Oh yeah, looks like Christine. Yep, not on fire, not trying to kill me. Well, back together. So there's only one thing left to do. Let's try it out and see if it works. And it cranks easy. Well, it's rescued. Believe it or not, you done a good job. I got me a little place to plant potatoes now. Yeah, I'll get that worked up and plant some potatoes in it. I hope this helps some of you. You know, pay attention when you're driving around. You never know what's sitting in a pasture field with cows, like this one. But be sure and hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Me and Pups will be back with another one. See you.